Christian, fear I sin again, no Christian Finnenberg. However you slice them up, you get a different word. If you say it fast enough, you clearly sound absurd. When you say it louder, it sounds like they're real words. Christian, fear I sin again, no Christian Finnenberg. I don't think you're ready for what you haven't heard from Christian O'Pera and Pete.
Yes.
Exceptional.
I'm going to cut this little bit out and post it everywhere.
Yes.
I love it. I love that I was just beaming through this. Pete was bopping his head. Christian, you just seem to be analyzing it deeply.
Yeah.
Well, breaking it
right.
into its component musical parts.
And given that, well, he was. I was literally going to ask him your analysis of that. Go ahead. What did you like?
Yeah,
No,
please.
I mean, it is, but I actually was thinking, oh yeah, you really could just chop up any of the, how many syllables? 6 for yours and 5 for me. The 11 syllables in our name, and it does make some interesting combinations. Yeah,
And we're lucky from a crossword point of view that we have a lot of vowels.
Yes, we're very crossword ready.
We are.
I always, there's certain I do the crosswords. So I'm very intelligent.
Really?
And
Nothing
there's
to
certain
do, huh? No other
there's certain
tasks
celebrities
or responsibilities. Got it.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't birth. So but there's certain celebrities who are famous now primarily because their names fit well into crossword puzzles. Esai
Absolutely.
Morales, Yasmin Bleeth, certain names.
Wow. I'm impressed with your intelligence there. I feel like a person when they reveal that they do crossword puzzles, I feel like that's a very revealing thing.
I feel like even Olivia Munn makes it in there because of the, you need U's, you need O's.
Yep.
You need these letters.
Yeah,
Make
need vowels, baby.
So
now crossword puzzles, they're really just, it's not, once you do a lot of crossword puzzles, it's a lot of the same answers.
It's like improv.
Yeah.
It's like once you see a lot of improv, you're like, wow, why is every suggestion, Tourette's, or I think that's probably weaned out now. Thank goodness. They would, and that used to be a leading thing when I'd see improv. It would be like, what's a non-fatal condition a human could have? And everyone would just yell out the same thing. Or they would go, what is something someone could pull out of a bag? And it was always like dildo. However, may I say that years ago, I opened up for an improv duo that was excellent in Atlantic City. And Stephen Wright, this is so many years ago, Stephen Wright was performing there. And so he dropped in backstage and he asked them if he could join them on stage for an improv, one of their games. And he was like, they were like, oh my God, absolutely. And the way that their improv set went, it was really almost like it was scripted at this point because they would always get the same suggestions, especially in Atlantic City. They would go, and that was their thing. They were in a scene and they would stop the scene and go, and she pulled out of her bag and do this to the audience, put up their hand, and the audience would yell back something and they would continue the scene. Always the same suggestions. But now Stephen Wright's on stage. And so they're like, okay. And she reached in her bag and pulled out and they went to the audience, but instead he answered. And he just went, doll heads.
And they stumped them.
Yeah, exactly. They were like, we've only ever done dildo.
Yes.
Wow. Well,
it's also so much of crowd work is like, you'll ask the audience a question. There's like 3 or 4 answers they're going to give you. And you're basically just trying to steer them into your rhetorical cul-de-sac where you can whip off these jokes that have worked 50 times before, but they think like you've just, created sorcery.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yes, you as the warm-up comic for many shows, you have no idea what we're talking about.
No idea what you're even referring to. Anyone here from Canada?
Mean.
What's your joke? What's your joke when somebody says, "Yeah, I'm from Canada"? And then what do you say?
Oh, I usually go down the very nice people. They can't raise their middle finger. Go ahead, try, and I have them try to. And if they're a smart, funny person, they'll fail. They'll like, yeah.
Right.
That's
you Americans raise
I
your middle finger differently.
I won 2 warmies for that joke, that bit. The warm up award. They're called the warmies. I think I have them. I don't know where they are. Speaking of Canada, aren't you? Well, I guess you are Canadian, but you're. I was about to say you're there, but I think
Not
you're
yet.
But you went to Portland. You're close to Canada.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny because I made a joke about Canada. First thing, I haven't been in Portland. Oh my God, years and years. And obviously, there's like a Brooklyn, Portland aesthetic thing that is very similar, but there's just so much more space there, and the people are Northwest Coasters. So, for example, staying downtown, there's no traffic. I mean, it's like staying in Midtown here. There's no traffic because why? Nobody's in the office. And also, there's probably not a lot of traffic on even the best of days.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm waiting at a stoplight and it's red, but there's no cars. So I'm about to cross, but the person beside me, a grown adult, is just looking at me like, what are you doing? I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, why are you waiting?
I feel that all the time, every time I jaywalk.
I lost your audio.
You lost my
I don't
audio?
know what happened.
I heard it.
You kind of froze.
Yeah, I think it's a you thing.
Finally.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're glitchy, Pete.
Can you guys hear me? Thumbs up.
Yeah,
yes,
but
you're glitchy.
You're glitchy.
Something
something
terrible happened.
Uh-oh. Do you want to re-enter, Pete? Can you as the host, or does it fall apart?
You look like an early 80s music video.
I got a oh boy. Spinning ball.
What happened?
Lost my audio.
Yeah, it's
Still
falling
recording
apart
over here. Stand by. Give me 30 seconds. Sorry.
Sure. That's okay. I'm gonna have some water because my south-facing windows make this room very hot.
Oh, that's sunlight.
Plus, it's 60 degrees or something. You know, it's minus 20 Celsius, but similar in Calgary right now.
I know I'm supposed to I know that's like a sign of the apocalypse and it's terrible. Like I get that, but just with everything being so awful, it's like I'll take a couple of nice days in December.
To walk outside and just be.
Yeah.
No, I go up to the roof of my building sometimes and just like take a couple breaths of fresh air when just for a break, and it's so nice up there right now. And I was just like, I felt the exact same way. I was like, I know this is not seasonal. It's not supposed to. It's so beautiful.
Just give me this. Just give me this. It's like, I need this.
Yeah, capitalism's about to collapse again.
Yeah.
We're all gonna go inside. I mean, right now there's like a massive threat that everything's gonna be shut down in January. And I guess we're all gonna go back to Zoom shows.
I don't know that things are gonna get shut down, but to me, it's the worst thing is things aren't shut down, but just nobody's going.
Nobody's going, right?
You know what I mean? So it's like
afraid.
So like, just in terms of QED, it's like, oh, okay, so everybody still has to go in, and all these people have to get paid, and yet the shows are. But
there'll be no help.
Nightmare.
Yeah, there'll be no help.
Yeah, I mean, all the help is come and gone, and so, yeah, it's
Yeah. So
it's like these shows that we're booking right now.
Yeah.
It's such a leap of faith. It's such a leap of faith. It's like these Howland people. It's like that audience. I mean,
that's cautious. That's a cautious audience.
It feels like it,
However, there's this one thing that is different, and I don't know how they will react, but it's just different outside of New York, where people with a sense of space, and they're all vaccinated, they have a very different view of what's taking a risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and and again, it's like, I understand there's people, immunocompromised people out there. I get it. I mean, I'm technically immunocompromised. So is Cambry. I mean, but it's like at the same time, at a certain point, when do we just accept it's endemic? And that if hospitalizations and deaths are still really low,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like is the idea of trying to quote unquote end it entirely? Is that out? Is the cat out of the bag on that?
Yeah, it seems so. I mean, the only thing, I think the hospitalizations have gone up, though. Yeah. I think that's the thing.
Well,
so it's just the strain on the healthcare system.
Yes, that 100%.
Yeah. So
but again, that's fucking unvaccinated.
I know. Yeah, someone told me, did I tell you this, that I'm a super vaxxer? Like there's categories of people, and I guess I'm a super vaxxer, which
Based
means
on
that I don't know. Like it was in this article. Oh, there he is. That like you're either an anti-vaxxer or you believe in vaccinations, or you're like me, which is philosophy-wise,
Right.
super vaxxer, which means that not only do you believe everyone should be vaccinated and you'll take as many vaccinations as possible. I mean, I believe in science, but also I think that non-vaccinated people should not have the right.
Oh yeah, yeah. There should be punishment. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Okay, so I don't
Hi.
know, do you guys have a hard out here?
I mean, a round 2 was good for
Okay.
me.
I mean, we could do like 15 more minutes, I think, at least.
Yeah.
I've
Sure.
got, and
We've
before I
gotten so much
restart,
gold so far.
before I restart, your mic sounds great, Ophira, but it's rubbing on your hair or shirt.
So
Can you-
I don't use this one. It's this one. So I don't understand.
Actually, I don't know that that's true, Ophira. Here, put the headphone one up to your mouth again and then talking.
No,
This one is.
Yeah, that's what it's coming through. I think you need to change your audio
Oh,
settings.
Okay, sorry. I'm
And
gonna do
then-
that right now.
And Ophira,
You're right. How dare it?
and
How's that? Is that different?
Oh, yeah, it is different. It's better.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
and then Ophira, if you, I actually know exactly where you were. I don't know if you can get back, but it was you were at a stop sign. If you started with I was at a stop sign, I can do an easy in edit. But
Okay, great.
can you do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pro.
I'm gonna put my mark on. Okay, and go ahead.
So I'm at a stoplight, no traffic, so I'm going to cross, of course. There's no reason not to. But there's an adult standing beside me, and he was looking at me like, "What are you doing?" What it says, "Don't walk." And I was like,
Yeah.
Do you have all the time in the world? What are you doing?
Yeah, I think of myself as a rules-based person, but then in those contexts, it's like, oh wow, like you're
Why?
just following rules just to follow rules. Like it's
Yeah,
not even a means
why?
to an end.
And then I went into a place to get coffee, and it was, the size of an Olympic swimming pool, just because there's so much space there.
Yeah.
Yet there's 3 tables, and it was 11 a.m. There was a pool table there, and there were 2 guys playing pool. I was like, what are you? I've always wanted to do this show where I just interview people and I go, what do you do? Why?
I love
What do
that
you do that you can be here right now?
I love that idea. I love that show. Portland sounds fun. It sounds very dystopian right now there. And I mean, are we, by the way, is this, we back? What's going on with Omicron? It seems to be, or the virus, COVID in general. And how are we going to emotionally get through it? Another wave of like, can Christian, can you explain to me what you see coming and how you're feeling about it? And Ophira, I want both your takes.
Well, I have feelings about it on 2 different tracks. I mean, there's the part of me that's just a human being experiencing COVID like we all are, and the adjustments that need to be made and whatever. And then there's the part of me that's like, oh, I'm also in the live performance business. I'm also in my career, quote unquote, revolves around being in the same room with other people, and how is it going to affect that? And I'm trying to decide which one is more depressing. It's a race between the 2. Yeah, I mean, Ophira and I were talking before we got on the mic about this. It's the same thing. Is of course there's the fear of a shutdown, quote unquote, that all these venues get shut down again. But my fear is actually not that. My fear is that there is no shutdown, but just nobody's showing up. So everybody is having to go through the motions of working and getting paid and all these things, but there's no demand for it.
So the data I want to base all my decisions on it's not, there's the data we have available, which is like how many people test positive, what the hospitalizations are like, and in some cases, how many people are vaccinated and how many people aren't of a population. But I want some test studies. I want here's a group of 100 vaccinated, boosted people who were all in the same performance place for 2 hours on Monday, Tuesday. Like they went to a performance every night, the same group of people. How'd it go?
Yeah.
Who got sick? That's the data I want.
I think that's a hard study to.
Yeah,
Oh, and what am I
that's
being paid to participate in the study? Oh, nothing. Literally nothing. We will do
No, you're
nothing
just
for
part,
you.
but you're really helping others.
A
Please
weird
risk your health.
and a
There
weird
might be some
twist is
industry there.
it would be hard to randomize the study because it would have to be the exact same people and performer. So you have to watch the same performance every night too, because that their amount of spit. I mean, if they're the super spreader, if it's a guy who screams a lot versus Todd Berry, I couldn't think of
That's a
anybody.
very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
what's going to
really
happen to
torture.
And
the
also just how funny are these performers? Like, are they,
Yeah.
because how,
right? Is it a
that-
laugh inside kind of thing?
exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
who's the comedian whose set you could watch for a week is the question, or any other live performer. But anyway, Ophira, before we go down that study that can't happen. I mean, yeah, well, I guess you kind of just answered the question there, but it's this concern. If you had that data, what would it tell you, and how are you feeling emotionally about what seems like it's coming back? I feel like there's more treatments and more people are vaccinated, and so it's like it's not as bad as it was because you're vaccinated and you there's a pill now you
There's
can
a pill.
take.
Yep.
Yeah, I think people need to understand that we're not in March 2020. It's not going to be like that. It's just not going to be the way we want it.
Right. And it is going to scare off some people who, I mean, I think the offices are not going to reopen in the way that they thought everyone was going to return in January, right? That was a huge thing. Everyone's going to go back to the office in January. And in a place like New York, I feel like that heavily influences the comedy scene
Yeah.
because people get in a mode where they go to their job, they have a drink after work, and then they go to a show. And when it's harder to motivate when you're like, no, you're home all day, and now it's 7 or whatever. Put on some pants and get out of the house. Like
Right.
most people are just done.
Yeah.
So
It's,
we'll see.
we'll muddle through. I may have said this last week, and so I apologize if I'm being redundant, but I really think, and I'm sure this is probably true in other major metropolitan areas as well, it's really going to take the next crop of horny 22-year-olds to come through.
You did not say that
to bring this and other cities back. And what I mean by that is even once things go back to quote unquote normal, there's going to be a level of PTSD amongst everyone who lived through this pandemic in New York. And not even PTSD is maybe too strong a word. People have learned how to adjust their lives to staying home a lot. And so it's just, I don't think it's going to be the same. I think people our age are just not going to go back to going out as much as they were in 2019. But there is then going to be that crop of college grads who move to New York or Philadelphia or St. Louis or whatever city who are going to want to go out and get laid because that's what 22-year-olds do. And they will be the sort of lifeblood of sort of the comeback of urban areas. But it's going to be probably 3 or 4 years before that happens.
It's going to be great because it's actually going to be empty nesters who are bored and they live in a big city and they didn't anticipate this would be their life.
Right.
And college students. That's going to cause some good times, baby.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be some good
I'm going
times.
to get so late.
I also think, did I tell you that I got a nosebleed in a grocery store through my mask?
What?
Oh.
I get nosebleeds in the winter always because the dry and the heat.
And the cocaine.
The cocaine. It's mostly the cocaine, and I say the dry and the heat in the winter, but I just do more cocaine in the winter because, come on. And I had a mask on, and everything in New York is so tight. Like I said, especially as I mentioned in relation to Portland. And then I got a nosebleed, and I guess it bled a little bit through the front of my mask, and I didn't know. And I did notice that people were keeping some distance from me, and I was like, oh, maybe people are really afraid of the Omicron, and like social distancing is back in New York. And then I came home and took off my mask, and it was just a disposable blue mask,
God.
and there was a little dot, like quite a good circle, actually, like a quarter of blood.
They probably thought you were like patient zero for the next variant.
I know, I'm pi. I guess I'm pi.
Oh, God.
That's exactly what I was going to say, but not as well said. Like they thought your infection is a new symptom. Like this is the variant that's developed. Oh, now we're getting nosebleeds. Get away.
Then it becomes Ebola.
Yeah. Oh my God, that is
Omega?
horrible.
Would it be the last one? I don't know. What
Omega is last, yeah. My dad did send me, after listening to our podcast when we were talking about the Greek alphabet, my dad listens, and he sent me the Greek alphabet because he had to learn that in high school. And so for some reason he wanted to brag because I bet you don't really get to. This got to be a golden time for people like my dad who know the Greek alphabet, because
Sure.
how often does that come in handy for the past 50 years?
This is their moment, playing the long game. Wow.
Shout out to your pops. That's awesome.
Even the Greeks are like,
that.
we had no idea.
Do you think, how do you both feel?
Here it is. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon.
What's after Omicron? Pi, right?
Omicron, yeah, pi.
And then?
Yes.
And,
he missed eta and theta. I don't know. I don't know.
Will those be the next? I don't follow close. Maybe I forgot this, but if there are, and there, I guess it's inevitable because of evolution and mutations, there will be more variants, and they'll be named those, right? Like
they'll be the next letters of the Greek alphabet. Yeah,
pi would be pi.
Pi would be next. Yeah,
Pi.
That'll be good for our friends at Noble Pies. I'm sure they'll leverage that.
Yeah, sure. It's 3.14 as bad as
we should mention. I should mention Noble Pies. Ophir, are you familiar with them? They've been long affiliated. You are, Christian, right? With the show and their listeners. They just opened their second location, and if you talk about them for like 30 seconds, they will often send you a pie.
Wow, really?
Start the clock.
Okay.
30 seconds.
I love the name. I love Noble Pies. What makes them particularly noble?
Well, that's Leslie, the owner's co-owner's last name. Leslie
lucky.
Noble. Yeah, they're great.
And
people.
she's the third Duchess of
also.
Well, now
yeah. I like.
I have a fun little joke I do whenever my wife mentions like, oh, we should make a pie or whatever, and I say hair pie, and she never finds it funny.
You should put that on next time it happens in real life. You should tape it and put it on TikTok because I'll love that.
Yeah,
she just like literally would just give me a glance like, yeah, hair pie. Very funny.
Hair pie. Mm-hmm.
I watch TikToks, like they feed you what you watch. I think maybe the algorithm's like whatever you watch the longest, like you stay watching it.
Yeah.
And there are all these couples.
Yep.
That are beautiful. It's never an unattractive couple, of course. And they play pranks on each other, and I am there for it.
You are?
They're so scripted.
They're so scripted. They're so corny.
And corny. And I'm like, those guys are awesome.
Yeah, and millionaires.
That's what marriage is like.
You know what? I can watch 100 of those. Have you ever seen the water bottle prank? It's very simple. Where where they put a quarter and they put a water bottle on top of a quarter, and then they say like, hey, look, I got this quarter into this, and whatever. They convince somebody to like lean over and look into the water bottle, and then they squeeze the side of it so it squirts water in their face. It's a very simple juvenile thing, but I do enjoy those.
I like the ones where they're like, oh my goodness, look at these like amazing like chocolate covered, I don't know, like strawberries I made, and they have taken like onions and cover them with chocolate, and the person bites it.
I've never seen that.
My stepmother did this to her brother growing up. My ex-stepmother, she had given her brother vanilla ice cream, but had hollowed it out and filled it with mayonnaise.
See, that's the stuff I like.
Oh, that's rough.
It's not funny until somebody gets hurt.
I used to have a roommate that would like eat our food in the fridge, would never buy food, and then he would have like creative ways to top up things by mixing other things to make it look like he didn't have your food. Like he was I remember he was like mixing baking soda and water, and I was like, what are you doing? And he was like, oh, and I think he was going to pour that into the milk to make it look like he didn't drink all the milk.
Wait, can I play? Have you ever? I once had a roommate that.
Yes, please.
I once had a roommate, nice guy, younger than me, in my early 20s, shared an apartment in Manhattan. He would shave. He was very hairy, like hairy back and chest, small little fella, and he would shave his full body in the shower, and then when I would go in there, it would be a ring of hair, like really thick, like ridiculously thick, like cartoonish. And I would always dry heave, but I didn't know he was such a nice guy, and I didn't know how to address that. But it was a tub covered in hair quite often.
You know what you can make with all that hair?
Hair pie. That's going to be a bit on our tour. Hair pie.
Hair pie. Welcome to segment one.
They're doing hair pie.
Oh, this is my favorite.
I love it when they do hair pie.
All right,
Just a
before I move
okay,
on,
everyone has to bring a gross story of hair every single show. Got it.
Got it.
I have a few. Before we move on, does anybody have I had a roommate once story? Or
Christian?
I had a roommate who was a dancer on MTV's The Grind, which was the show where people would gyrate in the 90s and like dance. It was hosted by Eric Nies of Real World fame. But she had a framed picture of River Phoenix that she put on the mantle in the apartment when River Phoenix died. And every morning she would walk up to and give the photo of River Phoenix a kiss.
Wow.
I had a similar thing. It was just a picture of Christian Slater, who is alive, but I would still kiss it.
Yeah.
I had a now ex-boyfriend, obviously, maybe not, that had a photo of his mother on his bedside table.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is that? I guess I'm not positive what that means.
Well,
I mean, I obviously think it's not great and healthy and stuff, but maybe, I don't know.
I mean, on some level, you're just like, whatever. And then, but if, I'm giving you like the little like, oh, and then later on in the relationship, I was like, oh, and it wasn't that anything gross.
Was he a mother obsessed dude?
Yes, he was just mother obsessed, and they had a very tight relationship, and everything had to go through mom, and it was just an intense relationship.
I'm feeling weird because when I first met my wife, I had my entire apartment was decorated in pictures of my mom. We're pretty close.
Which is weird because my apartment is decorated with pictures of your mom. Which is super.
Yeah, I just have the one on my bedside table.
Beaver shots. I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm sorry. Inappropriate. I apologize.
Come on now.
I'm gonna probably meet this woman at some point, and
she listens.
You can edit that out, please.
No,
Ms. Dominic.
No,
I apologize.
Send it to our lyricist to make a new song.
Beaver shots.
Pete's mom's beaver picture. Okay, now this is really.
I really brought down the level of today's podcast.
I asked you if I could ask you this before because I thought it'd be fun and interesting and positive, and I like that. And we always need happy. And you guys are both very modest, but very established, talented, super successful comedians. And Ophira, you've written books and stuff. You've both done a lot in this business. And so my question is, what's like your proudest moment? And hopefully you have a billion because your career has been filled with them. But like, is there a fun moment or story, something that you're kind of particularly proud of or look back fondly on? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I mean, I don't know if this is my proudest, but I'll just put something that was like really excellent in context, which was I decided that I was going to record my latest comedy album in the beginning of August, which seemed like a gentle time in comparison to now, but it actually was comparable to now because I was like, oh, all will be fine. And then Delta was a bit of a fear right in August. Right. So it was a small venue and everyone had to be vaccinated. And honestly, I'd done a bunch of live shows at that point, but I wasn't. Sorry, there's a boat outside my window. Can you hear that?
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was dramatic music.
Sorry, New York. But I was doing stand-up for a while, but my chops looking back were half chops because you have to do it a lot to have your chops back. I rehearsed a lot, as much as I could. And then people showed up. And I have to say, I've been listening to that recording a lot, doing the editing. And it was so fun on stage. And also I really felt like that audience paid it off doubly because they really wanted to get out and they hadn't been out. And it was those few times where I was like, this is why this art exists. Yeah. Because it really was catharsis. It was catharsis for me. It was catharsis for them. Like we were all agreeing to even the theater of a stand-up comedy situation to like make it the best it could be. And it reinforced like the reason to do it at all.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, there's nothing. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I say there's nothing better, when you're getting ready to record something, there's always going to be that X factor of like, will the crowd be hot Do you know what I mean? Because it's sometimes there's just a weird chemistry, and you know, obviously, hopefully, they're going to be fine. You know, your material is such that you know it's going to go fine or it's going to go well. But there's always an X factor of just like sometimes there's just a contagious energy to a crowd that it starts to take on a life of its own, and other times you constantly feel like you're having to sort of whip the audience up, where they're not a great audience by default. And man, when you're recording something and you realize about 3 minutes in, you're like, oh, this is a good audience. It's the greatest feeling in the world.
Yeah.
And when you feel like it turns into a dialogue, like you're actually kind of having a weird conversation.
Yeah. Where only you get to talk.
Yeah. So like ideal.
The best conversations.
Yeah. Pete?
Well, I want to know. Well,
what's yours?
I'll give you mine, but I want Christian to go. But I just wanted to add to the recording an album conversation. I don't do nearly as much stand up as you guys do. I'm not. My muscles are weak. I slide back into it pretty quick. I'm whatever. I'm getting ready to tape though this hour that I had been working on for a couple of years, and I am at the Syracuse Funny Bone. I'm home. I just lost my job. I'm as depressed as I've ever been, and it's going to be hard. All my friends and family that are there and coming out, and it's going to be that vibe you're just describing because it's your hometown. And I had 2 Friday night shows, and I was going to tape 2 shows Saturday. And just before the first Friday night show, which I really needed that practice, there was a shooting in the mall, and they closed the mall, and there was a lockdown, no shows. And the next night, I went with the obvious joke. I think it was my dad's idea, something about just, so far no shooting, so we should be good. But that wasn't a happy moment, and I feel like I ruined it now. So go back to, but like that, it just made it that much harder to get that.
Since you brought, I'll just bring up a similar kind of thing happened to me. I had a big industry showcase at the Improv in LA back when I had a new manager and they'd set it up, and it was going to be like a big deal. It was kind of going to be the thing that was going to really open up LA for me. And like 2 hours before the show, Michael Jackson died. And in LA, it's like the most Michael Jackson centric people. So it's just like even the people that were there, it's just like that's all anybody can talk about. There was everybody at the bar was talking about it, and it was just kind of like, guys, don't you realize this is my big night?
I'm surprised they weren't still talking about the former governor of South Carolina who left the state to have an affair with a woman in Argentina, and it was the biggest story in the world. And then Michael Jackson died, and that guy got off so much easier because nobody was talking about the guy who just left the state to have an affair with a woman.
I forgot that happened at the same time.
Happiest.
No, I was just going to say, there's one thing that I always think about with the pandemic. It's like this old showbiz, the show must go on, the show must go on. Like just this idea that you have to go on and perform after like devastating news and whatever. And there might even be an impulse that you feel like you have to incorporate it into your act when maybe like no one needs a joke about Michael Jackson's death the day after. Like maybe no one needs that. But I do think that if anything we've learned from the pandemic, like I do think the show must go on, but also the show doesn't have to go on. The show does not have to go on. The show can wait. Okay.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Nathan McIntosh. He's a great comic about this. Like in the summer of 2020.
Maybe we shouldn't do this show tonight.
Just don't do the show.
Well, but also it's just like this idea that we always have as comics. It's like, if I'm not getting up every night, then it's like, you know what? You can take a month off. It'll be fine. Yeah. You'll get back to it. You know what I mean? Like go on a vacation.
Right.
Like, you don't have to be
what
this
if someone
robot
replaces me? Well, then they were always going to replace you.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I don't mind throwing Ryan Reese under the bus publicly because like he's OCD. Had to do a show like every single night. He was like, talk about it. It's my 700th night. I was like, you have to live a life to have material. You can't always be on stage. But
that's so true. That is so true.
Yeah.
So Christian, happiest, proudest, what do you got?
Well, I don't know if proud, but I remember the most kind of delightfully surreal thing. For a long time ago, I had a show on TV Land. It was like an interstitial game show called Game Time, which would like when they'd be showing old movies during the commercials, I'd be doing dumb little whatever. And so they had like the TV Land Awards in like the early 2000s, mid 2000s. I was doing the red carpet. I was like naming the people as they walk down the red carpet or whatever. But the night beforehand, they had a comedy show for all of their TV Land advertisers. And to sort of make it feel like a big deal, they had like 5 celebrities in the room. And it was Adam West from Batman. And I adore Adam West because he's the star of Look Well, which is the funniest show to fail on TV of all time. Which Google it if you haven't seen the Look Well pilot written by Conan O'Brien and Robert Smigel. It's the greatest. Adam West, Peter Knight, who played Peter Brady.
Yeah.
Or Bobby Knight, whatever his name is, something Knight.
I think it's Michael.
Yeah, there's a lot of Knights out there. Marion Ross, who played Mrs. Cunningham on Happy Days. Tom Wopat, who played Luke Duke.
Yeah.
And somebody, Eric Estrada. And it was so bizarre to be doing comedy and be like, oh, look, Batman liked that one. Peter Brady, not so much. Oh, Mrs. C coming through in the clinch. She was a good audience member.
I bet she was supportive.
But that was one of those, like, this is like
that.
a moment of my life that I will just remember, forever. Just doing comedy for Luke Duke is just very strange.
That's awesome. I love it. Do you guys feel, I want to ask you one more big question that I didn't ask you about. Do you have time for one more big one?
Yeah.
This is a big one. This guy reaches out, a listener named Matt, great guy, gotten to know him because he lives near me. And I met him, and he actually like gave my daughter like an hour of his time because he's a volleyball coach. He's a teacher, but he's a volleyball coach as well. And he did like an hour of like clinic with her on volleyball because he's trying to learn how to play. Really great guy, younger, 31. Tells me that
he's dating your daughter now.
Sorry.
I love this moment.
I'm sorry.
Should you say, I don't know. I think he's okay to, bring him over for dinner. Christmas
He says, listen, this is going to sound weird, but your daughter and I are kind of a thing. I'm like, wait, you're 31. She's in junior in high school. And he's like, I know, but I am a subscriber.
Yeah, there's the rub. Yeah.
He tells me that he just finds out that his wife is pregnant, and he's let him know first trimester, whatever. And then he says, and 24 hours later, he finds out he may need open heart surgery. And he says, and it's similar to the issue that Christian Finnegan had. And do you think, I could talk to him about it? And I started thinking about both of you who have both had health issues. Of course, Ophira had breast cancer and also an accident when she was younger. And I started thinking, I've never had a serious health issue or accident like that. And I started thinking, how do you feel if people find out about something that you went through and they want to talk to you about it? Do you generally, have a posture like, yeah, sure, I'd love to tell you how I've dealt with it, or like, dude, please, I'm good. And so I thought that would be a good question for both of you, because I think that can kind of be a public service for people when they hear about it, talking about it openly, publicly.
So, I've been thinking about this for a long time, and actually ways to talk to people more about this stuff, because I think that it's so scary to most of the population, and they almost feel like if they talk to you about it, A, they might say the wrong thing, which they might. That is a thing. You go into it, you may say the wrong thing. B, that just the fear of having to talk about anything of a certain medical severity or disease or whatever, people are, because they have to reflect on their own mortality. So they just want to shut it down. And also, I think there's just desire to always be like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, right? It's going to be okay. Like to plague someone with it's going to be okay. I will say there is some merit in people telling you that they'll see you in the future, like this idea that it is going to be okay. Mm-hmm. There is some comfort in that. You just don't want to hear it from the point of view of someone saying it because they are saying it to themselves and you just happen to be there. And I think a lot of people who are struggling through this stuff do not get a chance to talk about it in a way. And it's very lonely. Very, very, very lonely. Yeah. And you feel almost silenced because all people want is the story of the phoenix rising from the ashes.
Yeah. What can you tell me that will make, like, when you're talking to somebody who's not sick, like who wants to ask you about it, it's like a lot of times what they really want is for you to just tell them that you're okay, so that they can have registered care and then move on with their lives. And so it can be very lonely, for sure. But I will say that, speaking of your listener, Matt, like, I can only speak for myself. I like talking about it with people because it's similar to when you have like a new roof put on your house, or you've spent a lot of time that you had, but I have all this information now
Yeah.
that I have nothing to do with. Do you know what I mean? That it's so it's like I kind of want to share it with somebody. It's like, oh my God, you're asking me about this thing that I know about, and I can't do anything with all this information. Like, I'd be happy to tell you about my experience, because what the hell else am I going to do with it? Anything that I can't turn into a joke is basically just taking up space in my brain. So yeah, I'm always when I was about to have my surgery, I was connected with a friend of a friend who had not the exact same surgery as me, but something very similar. And he was the same way. He was like, here's what to expect. Here's what I went through. And I could tell he was almost more eager to talk than I was. So yeah, I feel kind of the same way.
That was the other question I was going to ask you both, which is, because it's one thing if it's someone that knows you personally and has a relationship with you and a trust and an admiration or whatever and respect for, and says, listen, I'm going through something that's similar. Let's talk about it. It's a different thing if this is a person like, you don't even know him. Like,
I feel like that's so much easier. I always like talking to people that were a few steps away from me, because I didn't feel the same level of vulnerability.
Yeah. Or that, they don't know you, you don't know them. So there's nothing personal entering into it one way or another. It's like, I don't have to soften it for you. I also don't need to, like, scare you straight, or I just tell you what my experience was, and take of it what you will.
Because I really did think about this for a while, and I'm so glad that you both, have a lot to say about that. And because I've done it again, I've brought out the best of my guests, because that is such an important, I think, issue. But I feel like there's support groups for alcoholism. There's support groups for, cancer survivors and stuff. But like, I was going to say, especially men don't talk about their health stuff. But regardless, like, sometimes you have something very specific, and there's not, and you don't want to go to a support, but you hear publicly, you guys are public people, you're comedians, you talk about this in all different places. So people, like, this has happened a lot, especially through Christian's thing, because he was so openly talking about it. People reach out like, I'd love to talk to him or her about it. So there's not a support group for this kind of stuff.
No. And I will say that I made a mistake especially with the breast cancer. I mean, the car accident and that whole world of my life has heavily affected me, but that happened when I was a kid. So I've just been dealing with that my whole life. But with the breast cancer, I was so fixated on the fact that people would treat me different if I talked about it, and that I would be looked at a certain way, and I didn't want to see pity. I did not want to see pity in anyone's eyes, that I told almost no one. And in hindsight, you need people around you to help you out. You do need people, but it's scary. So I feel like that's why, I mean, now I think like, oh my God, if I could, any way I can be there for someone else who is open to it, I want to take, because that was a mistake I made. It's too hard to go through this stuff alone.
I'll take all the pity that Ophira doesn't want.
I'm also going to say, anybody who wants, send pity.
Oh yeah, I don't like pity at all.
Oh, I want it. I want it all.
Well, I didn't tell you. I didn't tell you guys this ahead of time, and but I am looking for this week. I'm looking for a lot of compliments and gratefulness. This is show number 500.
Fantastic! Congratulations!
Indeed, Petey.
And I couldn't be happier to be talking to both of you, and now on a hopefully regular basis, and doing this tour. We've announced 3 dates, and I'm super excited about where I'm going, certainly with this show, but especially with specifically hanging out with you guys and doing shows and being with you, and you make me better here and doing stand-up. So I just wanted to say thank you for joining me here on this special show, as well as whenever you can, whenever you're available. And I just have so much admiration and respect for all of who both of you are, and I want to say that to your goddamn faces. There.
Thank you, Pete. I appreciate that. I want to congratulate you. Like, early in the pandemic, I reached out to you just because I saw you were doing your podcast every day, and I was kind of at my where I started being sick of being home, and I reached out to you and said like, hey, I'd love to do your podcast sometime, just because I've always admired your your ability as a radio host. Like, I've told the story on the podcast before. I was driving, I had rented a car that had Sirius. I was doing a road gig, and I ended up on POTUS, and I thought like, oh man, this host really knows what he's talking about. Like, and he seemed like smart and was listening and thoughtful. And then it randomly turned out to be that dude who I knew from comedy. And ever since then, I've just been such a huge believer in your talent and in your ability, not just on the mic, but off of the mic, in terms of creating a community of really great people. Like your audience is the audience as a comedian that I'd kill to appeal to. And so I want to thank you for doing this. I want to congratulate you on all your great work.
Yeah.
Well, you have told that story before, but it never gets old. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And I know that me being here, elevates your show. So, so I guess you're really thanking me.
That's exactly, yeah, that's absolutely true.
Thank you.
In so many different ways. And I love it. I love all of you, and I'm very excited to see what is going to happen with you, Ophira, next, and then of course with the three of us this year. I think it's gonna be. I think this tour is gonna be. I think it's gonna blow up.
So excited about it.
I think we're gonna be playing arenas.
I am so excited about it. Seriously, I can't wait.
Arenas.
Yeah, it's like this, but more. Think about that, everyone.
But with like actual written material and twice as many hair pie jokes.
Speak for yourself. All right, guys. Well, I'll let you go. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for joining me on this special show. Have an awesome weekend. Are we plugging anything? This posts on Friday. Any plugs that specific for the next week?
Nope. Holidays, baby.
Holidays. Yeah. And quickly, how do you feel about inflatable lawn? I do this rant every year. Inflatable lawns, but I have a specific one now, Christian. Inflatable lawn decorations, Ophira, for the holidays.
Too much. Oh, I mean, I like driving by them and looking at them and being like, that is the biggest thing I've ever seen.
Right.
But I also, I have this, it's like a caged animal. I just want to go and like cut all the wires.
Yeah, exactly.
When I see inflatables, it makes me know that your house is going to stink. Like, I know that your house is a mess and that it smells and that there's like stains on the carpet.
That is a really interesting judgment and assumption. Well, the problem, of course, I've said it before, but the problem is, use lights when during the day. I can't see your lights, and often these people, I don't get this. They let them deflate during the day, and I walk my dog or I drive past, and this just looks like a used condom on your lawn, or just trash all over your lawn. They look terrible. And finally, yesterday, a neighbor has way too many of these things, but he had an inflatable nativity set, guys. An inflatable baby Jesus, Joseph, and Mary, Ophira.
Oh my goodness. I was going to say, like, I know that look during the day where it's like someone stabbed Santa Claus.
Yes, but in this case,
a little shriveled up, deflated baby Jesus. That's sacrilege.
Exactly.
Where's the Christmas miracle?
The reason for the season.
The three wise men brought an air pump.
There's a lot.
It's like I'm so just trying to make the hackiest sex doll joke in the world, and I've managed to hold off on it. And so,
come on.
No, I'm just saying it's whatever. It's just,
all right. Leave it up to our imagination.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.